Urban legends are modern folklore, unverified, unusual, or frightening stories circulated as true. They typically combine secondhand narratives, a friend of a friend, or my cousin's friend,
Yeah.
or my uncle knew a guy, with contemporary familiar settings to entertain, caution, or explain societal fears. Key characteristics: the friend of a friend effect. Tellers almost always claim they heard the story from a trusted source who experienced it firsthand. Malleable plots. The stories adapt and change with each retelling, often shifting details to fit the local culture. Cautionary or morbid themes. They frequently serve as warnings about modern dangers, moral behavior, or the consequences of risky decisions. Plausibility. Unlike ancient myths about gods, urban legends are set in the real world and sound just believable enough to induce panic or intrigue. Common examples: The Hook, a classic tale of young lovers parked in a remote area who hear a scratching noise only to drive off and find a prosthetic hook hanging from the door handle. Sewage alligators, the enduring claim that flushed baby alligators survived in the city sewer system and grew to monstrous sizes. Vanishing hitchhiker, a driver picks up a mysterious hitchhiker who has to be dropped off at a specific address, only for the driver to look in the rearview mirror and realize the passenger has vanished. Upon checking with the address, they learn the person died years prior. Why we tell them? Psychologists and folklorists suggest urban legends thrive because people have a natural inclination towards gossip, fear, and curiosity. They help society process contemporary fears in a digestible way and can occasionally be traced back to a shocking yet real news event. Now, I
Right.
do have from AmericanFolklore.net one of these such stories, so I will tell that story.
All
Let me
right.
just, it's called, this is a variation of the Vanishing Hitchhiker. It's called A Massachusetts Ghost Story. Our friends Josh and Sandy were firm believers in ghosts and claimed to have seen the mysterious red haired phantom that haunted Route 44. My wife and I were sitting with them at dinner one night and we started kidding them about it. Funny how we've never seen him, and we drive that stretch of road all the time, my wife Jill drawled. You skeptic, Sandy said, emphasizing the word as if it were a curse. One of these days, you're going to find out I'm right, and you'll owe me a pizza. If I ever see the ghostly hitchhiker, I'll buy you a large pizza every day for a year, I promised. The evening ended pleasantly, and it wasn't long before Jill and I were driving home through the crisp fall air. Let's take Route 44, Jill said suddenly, flashing me a sideways look. Hoping to see a ghost? I chuckled, taking the turn as she directed. Ha! Jill snorted derisively. She yawned and turned her head to face the passenger window. Suddenly she let out a shriek of sheer terror. I jumped and glanced sideways, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. A red-haired man with a bushy beard wearing a plaid shirt and blue jeans was running right next to the passenger side of the car. He kept glancing in the window and leering at Jill. Heart pounding in terror, I hit the gas. A moment later, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the red-haired man was sitting in the back seat of our car. Jill shrieked again and began pummeling the phantom with her purse. I kept looking back and forth between my wife, the phantom, and the road ahead, determined that I was not going to let the red-haired ghost force us into a fatal accident. I glanced toward the back seat for a moment, and the ghost laughed, a laugh that made my teeth tingle and the hairs on my neck stand up. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of my womb, Jesus. Jill gabbled the words of the rosary. Glancing in the mirror, I saw the phantom grimace as she recited the holy words. Then he vanished without a trace. I
Oh,
got us out of
boy.
there much faster than the speed limit allowed. I was shaking from head to toe, and Jill was sobbing hysterically. As soon as I pulled into the driveway and turned off the car, I swept my wife into my arms and held her as tightly as I could. We clung together for a long time until both of us had stopped shaking and Jill's sobs had abated. I want to go inside, Jill whispered against my neck, and I nodded, not trusting my voice. That night, we discussed the incident, but oddly enough, neither of us had nightmares. When we woke in the morning, I felt much better about the whole thing, until I remembered my promise to Sandy the night before. I groaned aloud and then clapped a hand over my mouth lest the sound wake my wife. Too late. She opened her green eyes and gave me a sleepy smile. You owe Sandy a year's worth of pizza, Jill said. I most certainly do, I replied, rubbing the back of her neck gently. I most certainly do. This was written by S.E. Schlosser. S.E. Schlosser is the author of the spooky series published by Globe Pico Press. She has been telling stories since she was a child, when the games of Let's Pretend quickly built themselves into full-length tales acted out with friends. A graduate from both Houghton College and the Institute of Children's Literature, Sandy received her master's in literary science from Rutgers University while working as a full-time music teacher and a freelance author. So shout out to S.E. Schlosser for writing that urban legend up.
Yeah.
Now there's another one I looked up. This one is from Atlas Obscura. This is called The Vanishing Hitchhiker. This is not a narrative like what I just read, but more of a analysis kind of thing. It says The Vanishing Hitchhiker legend is an ancient tale that keeps evolving. This is written by Mark Hay. The classic creepy story a driver offers a lift to a stranger who is not of this world has deep roots and a long reach. Vanishing Hitchhiker legends are just the latest version of a folklore that may go back millennia and continues to spread and evolve. It says here, drive through the Chicago suburbs of Willow Springs late at night, and local lore says you might see a forlorn young woman in a white dress on the side of the road. If you take pity and ask if she needs a ride, she'll quietly accept. She's soft-spoken and won't say much, save that she's headed your way. Then a couple miles down the road, she'll ask you to let her out, just as you pass the gates of a Resurrection Catholic cemetery. You may well turn around confused to ask if this is really her stop, only to find that she has vanished. Many Midwesterners likely know a version of this story, called Resurrection Mary, is one of the region's most famous and enduring ghosts, but Mary is just one of the dozens of vanishing hitchhikers who supposedly haunt roads across the United States and beyond. There's the hitchhiking Los Angeles woman in white who asks to get out at a cemetery and then vanishes, or the cackling flannel-clad redhead with hollow eyes who hitches in rural Massachusetts but vanishes in the back seat, or the man looking for a lift on a lonely stretch of South Carolina road, only to vanish when the car passes the site of a 50s prop plane crash. Vanishing hitchhiker legends are so ubiquitous that there's an entire subfield of folklore research going back more than 80 years, dedicated to tracking and unpacking them. What's more, these tales are likely modern incarnations of much, much older legends, and they continue to spread and evolve. Accounts of Resurrection Mary and a handful of other vanishing hitchhikers started making the rounds in the 1930s. There was no compendium of these legends at the time, so as folklorists encountered one version, they treated it as a unique local tale, perhaps one born of the memory of a nasty early auto accident and anxieties about the proliferation of automobiles. Then Richard K. Beardsley and Rosalie Hankey, students at the University of California, Berkeley, went digging. The pair searched for records of any car accident that could have inspired the version they'd heard. They came up empty, but they did discover similar yet distinctly local tales throughout the state. One of the people they interviewed, a businessman based in San Francisco, mentioned hearing of other versions in Chicago and Salt Lake City. Beardsley and Hankey reached out to the contacts nationwide, and within 2 months, they had a collection of nearly 80 distinct tales from New York to Hawaii. They never found a clear your story, the version from which all others evolved. But their research, published in 1942 in the inaugural issue of the journal California Folklore Quarterly, uncovered several curious aspects of the legend and coined the term the vanishing hitchhiker. While each version of the story was hyperlocal, named specific area roads, dance halls, and other landmarks, overall they could be broken into 4 broad categories: a hitchhiker who simply vanishes en route to a given address, a young woman picked up at a social event who leaves behind a token, such as a coat or shawl, a wayfarer who predicts disaster before disappearing, or, unique to Hawaii, a hitcher turns out to be the goddess Pele, who goes on to reward people who offered her aid and punish those who ignored her. The 2 students also found parallels with much older European lore, including stories about spirits of those who died unexpectedly and were trying to make their way home. Almost by accident, Beardsley and Hankey had conducted the first systematic study of modern legend. Their initial findings tantalized other scholars who saw how documenting the vanishing hitchhiker could serve as a case study for a new approach to understanding how folklore evolves. The renowned folklorist Louis C. Jones became convinced that if we could fathom the total history of this one story, its origins, its periods of uh, quasi-science or I can't pronounce this word. I want to say it's quasi-science and activity, its borrowings and lendings, its mutations and constants, its sensitivities to world events. We could have the answer to many of the riddles of our folklore culture. They trace back to ancient Roman tales of ghosts dispensing wisdom on roadways. Let me see how much longer this is. I better go to the comments before I continue reading because it's kind of, there's a few more paragraphs. Let me see. I saw the chat moving around, so let me see what's going on. Sandy says, I think urban legends make a great foundation for a movie because everyone has been affected by stories, whether they're true, exaggerated, or completely made up. BC says, yeah, Sean Bean was in The Hitcher. It wasn't a ghost movie. It was more based on real life. I think The Hitcher does have a supernatural element to it. I was watching something about it where the writer said that The Hitcher is kind of a supernatural entity. But don't quote me on that. I could be mistaken. Doc Kaiju says, we have a phantom white car urban legend. The first version I heard was the young lady in white dress. And I think she was a jilted prom queen or something like that. Yeah, I bet you there's like dozens of these. I've heard this story once in Connecticut from my dad's father. Said he picked up a nurse that vanished. Still a lady in white, but she vanished.
I was going to talk about, well, go ahead.
Well, is it about what I'm reading or separate?
It's an disappearing animal,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the black dog of Meriden, Connecticut. Like if you
Yeah, I've
go
heard of
into the
that.
mountain and you see the black dog, it's that like you're dead.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it's like it's a mountain road and you're going up the mountain. So if you see this black dog on the mountain, you will die.
Mm-hmm.
But that's allegedly.
Says here they trace back to ancient Roman tales of ghosts dispensing wisdom on roadways. In 1944, Jones confirmed the connection between vanishing hitchhikers and older European ghost lore, tracing them to stories of ghost riders brought to the U.S. by 19th century immigrants. In these tales, spectral women leaped onto men's horses as they rode to parties and then disappeared as they arrived. Binghamton University folklorist Elizabeth Tucker adds that those early tales have since been traced back to medieval legends about wandering, vanishing saints, which may turn into echo ancient Roman tales of ghosts dispensing wisdom on highways. While road names and other details vary, every legend in this lineage taps into an underlying concept, the liminality of roads. It's easy to feel not just that we're moving from point A to point B, Tucker says, but maybe also between worlds, encountering unfamiliar and unexpected sights and strangers. Vanishing Hitchhiker legend simply update this concept to reflect car-dominated roads and the uniquely unnerving feeling of driving alone at night on empty roads. Driving at night can be quite spooky, says Haley Stevens, who investigates paranormal phenomena from a science-based perspective. Quote, a smaller field of vision, not knowing who is around, feeling tired towards the end of the day. These are all ingredients for a scenario in which something quite ordinary could be interpreted as something terrifying. The legend evolves not only to reflect changes in how we travel, but to adapt to new cultures and concerns. In the 50s, Utah folklorist William A. Wilson recorded tales of prophetic hitchhikers who urged Mormon drivers to participate in a church-backed food stockpiling program. And in the American South, the otherworldly hitchers took on characteristics of La Llorona, the famous weeping ghost of Mexican folklore. These stories, like all ghost lore, convey a subtle morality lesson, says the folklorists who study them. But the moral of vanishing hitchhiker legends also seems to shift as it spreads across time and cultures. Many Hawaiian versions emphasize the importance of aiding those in need, for example. But that flannel-clad man in rural Massachusetts, who sits cackling behind the driver, grows louder and more maniacal until he vanishes, reminds listeners of the dangers of trusting strangers too easily. Researchers have found that ghost lore seems to endure when it's connected to something familiar and concrete, a known figure or landmark, a verifiable tragedy of death. A story about a particular stretch of road, for instance, invites people to recount, embellish, and thus perpetuate it whenever they hit that treacherous turn. And while it's often hard to verify, the alleged death referenced in the Hitchhiker tale, car crashes and other accidents are not that uncommon. Being able to find at least a plausible connection to one of those real life tragedies, a young woman who died in circumstances similar to those of Resurrection Mary, for example, makes the legend seem more authentic. And one more section here, it says ghost lore seems to endure when it's connected to something familiar. But the most fascinating aspect of the Vanishing Hitchhiker for many researchers is its truly global adaptability. In the mid 1950s, on the heels of the Korean War, a variant of the tale appeared in South Korea, which did not have a strong car culture at the time. Soon after, versions popped up in East Africa, which had little cultural connection to the urban legends of the US. In the 21st century, folklorists have documented the legend popping up in Romania, China, northeastern India, and even relatively isolated Bhutan. While the globalization of American pop culture may explain some of the legend's international spread, it tends to find purpose only in cultures that already have some tradition of ghost lore. The legend also typically takes hold in a society going through a period of social change and uncertainty. Folklorist Margaret Lyngdahl of Estonia's University of Tartu found that the Vanishing Hitchhiker tale spread in the Indian city of Shillong alongside rapid urbanization. There, she says, highways and traffic became focal points for broad anxieties about changes in social structures, cultural norms, and senses of safety, just as they were in the 1930s America. There's one difference, however. Shillong has no history of hitchhiking, so the legend evolved there to be about cab drivers picking up supernatural passengers. In 2021, professional skeptic Deborah Hyde wrote that vanishing hitchhikers might be on the decline. Hitchhiking is far less common than it once was. Safer roads and vehicles and greater connectivity have made driving at night less of a journey into the liminal. Some folklorists haven't identified new iterations of the old legends for years, at least in the US. But there's another reason the legend may be fading here. It's simply too well known. One thing about that, as they're saying, the legend being passed around the world, it kind of reminds me of what they mentioned about La Llorona. There's a weeping woman or a wailing woman or banshee in so many cultures around the world. So the Vanishing Hitchhiker isn't the only thing that people seem to have experienced internationally.
Right.
Since the 1940s, the Vanishing Hitchhiker legend has turned up in radio plays, TV shows, including its own Twilight Zone episode, indie horror movies, reality shows, and even video games. The motif's ubiquity makes the actual stories, even when told over a campfire or whispered on a late night road trip, seem contrived. However, some folklorists, including Lyngdahl and Tucker, believe the legend is far too flexible to fade away. Even in the US, where the vanishing hitchhiker is almost a cliche, Tucker believes there's still deep fascination with eerie, empty roads and the supposed potential for paranormal encounters on them. There's also a hunger for frameworks to contextualize unnerving experiences that many of us have had. And there's more willingness to talk openly about those experiences. In fact, Tucker says she's noticed fewer secondhand and more purported firsthand accounts of roadside ghost encounters recently. Though they're often just about specters standing on the shoulder of the highway and then vanishing, rather than picking up any young women in white. Tucker adds that these newer stories can be found on social media and YouTube rather than in local newspaper or bar chatter. As we live more and more online, our ghosts do too. And that's the end of that. But there is a correction that says this article previously described Elizabeth Tucker as a folklorist at the University of Birmingham. She is a folklorist at the Binghamton University. So Binghamton does sound similar to Birmingham, but yeah. So they had something really good to work with when it comes to the underlying story. Let me see what the chat is saying again. BC says, you're right, Lady Shasha. Sean Bean transports or teleports, kind of. BC says, who in the chat has seen a ghost? I've never seen a ghost, but I've felt a ghost. Like I haven't seen them, but I've felt them, touch my hair or pull on. One time I had these glasses that I had a little chain on the glasses, and it was tugging on the chain on the side of my glasses. Sandy says, never saw anything paranormal, but I've scared myself thousands of times thinking about something scary and feeling like it was there with me. That could be what they call topo creation. I think it's called topa. Wait, maybe I'm saying it wrong. Definition of topa creation. I'm looking on Google here. Yeah, tulpa. It's Tulpa. Tulpa creation is the most common and likely intended term for materializing being a thought of form, often called a tulpa by mistake, that is brought into existence through intense spiritual practice, concentration, or collective belief. Meaning that if enough people believe something enough, it becomes real. They call that tulpa creation. It says its origins in Tibetan mysticism. But yeah, if you think about something and believe in something enough, they say that you can make it real, become real, and that's really scary. BC says, I have also done that, Sandy. Doc says, I'm a tulpamancer. Okay. I don't know whether you want to do that. CJ says, when I was small, I heard a scarecrow in a family friend's attic say hello to me and call me by name. I don't know if that was real, but it definitely seemed real. Wow, it could have been. If you were a small child, because they say small children are closer to the afterlife, they're able to see things. Like, have you ever picked up a baby and it looks over your shoulder at something and you turn around and there's nobody there, but the baby is looking at it, like that type of thing. Doc Kaiju also says that would be an egregore. It's a group of thought form. And then he continues, a thought form created by an individual would be a tulpa. Ah, gotcha. So if a group of people do it, it's a thought form, but if an individual does it, it's a tulpa. Okay.
Only time that I've really thought of something was when I went to Castillo de San Marco. It was a class trip with a bunch of fourth graders. Castillo de San Marco is supposed to be haunted Spanish fort in St. Augustine, Florida. They were talking about like there were plenty of wars there. There was one room where they had like beds all over. Like there must have been about 12 beds, and my group and the parents were the grown-ups were all standing by the wall, but I'm standing far enough away from the wall to let people by me, and I had a backpack on. So the kids are laying on the beds. Well, they're sitting on the beds, and the guy's talking about how they made the mattresses out of Spanish moss. So the kids all lay down in it, and as soon as the guy says, he says, you kids shouldn't be laying on the beds because they had sand fleas in the Spanish moss. All the kids like literally sat up, like it looked like a horror movie how they sat up. But during that whole time, now I'm far away from the wall. I felt somebody yank my backpack really hard, like it bent me backwards. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought it was one of the parents or like a kid behind me. So I turned around and there was nobody there. So then I turned back around to look at the kids because I didn't want to tell anybody about it. So I had my digital camera. So I started taking photos. And yeah, that's the room right there. Is that my picture?
No, I pulled it off of Google.
Well, I took photos. I took photos in that room when I was facing that way the camera is, and the kids were on those beds, and something pulled me. So I took photos, and then there were just a bunch of orbs around in the photo. And then when I went with Lady Shasha, we went into like a room where they keep like the ammunition where they kept it. And I think she stood in it. And I was taking photos of her and just to get the size of the room. And there were orbs in there too. Like I saw a lot of orbs in that thing. But as far as the ghosts are concerned, it's still weird. Like we laughed. Like we rode, me, my cousin, and a friend of ours, we rode into Farmington, Connecticut. And it was like a construction site. But it wasn't. It was just a bunch of dirt. We used to call it the dirt hills. And we went on with our bikes, and then we climbed to the top of the dirt mountain, and we were sliding down, getting dirt everywhere, sand everywhere, and I just kept hearing somebody whistle, but there was nobody around. It was just us three. We just kept hearing like I can't even do it. Let me see if I can do it. It was like I can't do it, but anyways, it would whistle. It would go
like that.
My cat's going crazy now when I'm doing that whistling, but
it would
whistle.
The ammunitions room?
Yeah, there's like Lady Shasha was in the back by that light, and I just had a bunch. If you look at that picture, you can see kind of see orbs in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a bit, didn't creep me out. I wasn't like, oh my god. I was just like, oh, somebody pulled my backpack. What the hell? And then, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell the kids. And then we walked down the main,
Let me find
not
a
the main
better
street.
picture.
That we walked down a touristy street.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what street I'm talking about?
Are you talking about in St. Augustine?
Yeah.
St. George Street.
Yeah, so we walked down St. George Street, and there's like a museum of torture. And we went in there, and all the kids were like, "What is this? What is this? What does this do?" And I had to tell them about the Iron Maidens and stuff like that. But that was the only ghost experience I had, pretty much,
That's weird.
except
Why can't
for
I?
just like we in Connecticut, there was on a street where I used to live as a kid. This boy and the family moved into this house, and it was supposedly haunted. I only found that out because we used to have this show in Connecticut called PM Magazine, where it would
Mm-hmm.
come on at night and it would discuss stuff, and they talked about this house that I used to go in. It was called they called Elizabeth the Friendly Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
There was another room too. There was like it would that place is creepy in the day,
Yeah.
and it's just full of tourists. So if there's any kind of energy, you would definitely see it in there because of the amount of people that go in and out and the amount of kids that are in there. But yeah, it is. Do you have a outside view of because CJ's
Of the
saying it's a beautiful place.
Here, I'll show you.
The
This is
aerial
the
view.
this is the aerial view, the overhead, and then I also
Yeah,
have a view of it here. This is a little bit closer, what
and
the
it's crazy because
courtyard kind of looks like.
there's a moat that's around it that would flood. They said that it would have flood during high tide. That's the inside of it right there. And
Yeah.
we've been up to the top of that. I have a picture of me in the corner by that steeple because
Mm-hmm.
it's hot as hell up there. And I had
And I
my
have
kids
some.
with me, my kids as in my students,
Mm-hmm.
because I had 5, and they all want to take a photo with me. And it was hot as hell. Like I was like closing my eyes because it was so hot.
And I have a couple pictures of St. George Street where we walked.
St. George Street was pretty cool, actually. I'd like to go back to St. Augustine. It's so haunted. They call it one of the most haunted cities in
Mm-hmm.
Florida. It's so haunted. They have nightly ghost tours.
Mm-hmm. That's one picture of St. George Street, and then I have another one that may be a little bit clearer.
Yeah, like
Let's pull that up.
because you can see the cobblestones.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
it
that
now. It
one's
looks
nice.
so touristy now.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't look the same as it used to.
No, they made it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's right by. Oh, we should talk about what the fort was used for. Castillo de San Marcos was a fort that the Spaniards had when they had possession of um, Florida, the section of Florida of the USA. Because for those that are outside the United States, America was kind of divided up. Louisiana was under French rule, I think, at the time. Florida was under Spanish rule, which is why it's called Florida, like flowered in Spanish. Um, and Louisiana is, I think, named after a queen.
And
Texas
supposedly,
was being fought uh, between Spain and Mexico, and then there's like the Louisiana Purchase is when the United States bought Louisiana from France. But this fort is a relic of when Spain was trying to fight off the British, if I'm remembering correctly, for Florida. And there's cannons up there too.
yeah, and yeah, CJ, it is called. I believe it is Castillo de San Marcos.
Yeah,
But
I'll
the
play it.
they yeah, what was I lost my train of thought because I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the castle. Oh yeah, when you go to the top and you face the water,
Mm-hmm.
it's a hell of a spot for a castle or a fort because you could see the bay
Hmm.
right there. So they said that it was a prime. That's why everybody fought over it, because it was prime area for, you could see the ships coming into the bay, and
Hmm.
you can get the cannons ready because the cannons are facing the bay area. But
I want to
good.
oh, I want to show you something. As I was typing in something in St. Augustine, I was looking up. Um, I was gonna put in haunted lighthouse,
Yeah,
and this is. Let me show you what happened when I did that. I started to type it in for St. Augustine,
yeah.
and where is
I
it?
bet you the
Here you
lighthouse I
go.
took a photo of is haunted.
No, this is what came up. Haunted, and I started to put lighthouse
Yeah,
for
see?
St. Augustine, haunted pub crawl St. Augustine, haunted place in St. Augustine, haunted tour St. Augustine, haunted hotel St. Augustine, haunted house St. Augustine, haunted lighthouse St. Augustine, haunted trolley tour, haunted jail, haunted bed and breakfast, haunted houses. Like the St. Augustine got to be the most haunted place in the
and
U.S.
and supposedly,
Hmm.
allegedly, the Fountain of Youth is there too.
Yes, Ponce de Leon thought that the Fountain of Youth was in somewhere in St. Augustine because he came here and saw those Native Americans and said, "How the heck are they 30 years old and look like teenagers?" The answer is melanin, but they
But the Fountain of Youth,
didn't
basically,
know that.
I believe the Fountain of Youth is just basically a spring.
Yeah, could be, and
We have them everywhere.
also warm weather. It's why so many elderly people come to Florida to retire. The
Yeah.
warmth feels good on your body. It just feels good.
Well, yeah.
But where was it? You were talking about someplace haunted in Connecticut. What was it?
There's a bunch. If you go to Damned, Connecticut, you'll see them all.
Let me see. Damned Connecticut.
Damned, Connecticut, yes. And there's actually a road that's in Hampton that I went down. That's the road I went down
Okay.
with June and Sarah.
Let's see. Let's take a look at the. Let me pull it up here. What I will do is put this over here.
You are avoiding everything to just get to these spoilers.
No, we're gonna get to the spoilers, but this is just really good conversation here. Let me share the screen because I did not know about Damned Connecticut.
Oh, you didn't? You didn't
No,
know
I didn't know
about
about it.
Connecticut being all crazy haunted?
No, I knew about haunted places. I didn't know about the website Damned Connecticut.
Oh. If you scroll down,
Yeah.
there's like little there's things that will tell you the stories of each one.
Okay, so you got hauntings, hikes and walks, legends, Connecticut curiosities, popular
If you go to
posts,
Legends, you'll
Connecticut.
see the black dog of. I think you might see the black dog of Meriden in the
Let's see.
Legends, because there's an alphabetical order too.
Buried in a barrel, the grave of Captain Sluman Gray in Lebanon, Connecticut.
I told you.
That's short. Charles Island, Milford. Coming up empty on Old Leathery. Damned Hike,
Lovers Leap.
Lovers Leap State Park, New Milford.
I've been there.
Damned Hike, Old Leatherman's Cave, Watertown.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I've missed it.
Damned interview from Courtney McInvale.
Oh, that's probably
McInvalley, maybe. Oh. Another interview with Dan W. DeLuca. Daniel Benton Homestead in Tolland, Connecticut. That looks creepy. Gardner Lake in Salem. Hannah Cranna. I've not heard of that. This is the Wicked Witch of Monroe. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Hookman Cemetery in Seymour. Leatherman Mania. There's like several pages more. Do you know that? Yeah, yes. You said it was the black dog, right?
Yeah. Well, or just look up Black Dog. Look up Black Dog of Meriden.
Let's see. Penfield Reef. I'll just scroll through. Sea Monsters and Serpents, Long Island Sound.
Yeah. There it is, right there.
Giant. There it is. The Black Dog of West Peak.
Yeah. You click on it and you can read it. There's a pop-up probably.
Okay. Yeah. This is written by Ray Bendici. The Damned Story, Animal Lovers Beware. Looming over the city of Meriden are the scenic hanging hills, allegedly the highest spot on the east coast that's within 25 miles of the shoreline. A range of rocky peaks created by an ancient lava flow. They have drawn countless visitors over the years to Hubbard Park, thanks to their rugged beauty and spectacular views. The distinctive Castle Craig, yes, that's the castle thingy you see from I-691 is a century-old observation
I-91.
tower. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I-91. I don't know why I didn't, because it
Yeah.
says I-691.
I know. That's
It should be
yeah.
just I-91. Yeah.
No,
Is it
okay, just keep going.
is a century-old stone observation tower and sits atop East Peak over 1,000 feet above sea level. On a
I've been
clear
up there.
day, you can literally see the Long Island Sound to the south, all the way to the foothills of the Berkshires in Massachusetts to the north. But it's not the panoramic beauty you see from Castle Craig. That's the problem. It's the supernatural canine of the West Peak that can cause you despair, and the possibility of death if it comes your way. Over the years, people have told of encounters with a small, vaguely spaniel like short haired black dog. Often it is described as having come out of nowhere, and despite its sad eyes, being quite happy to have human companionship. Like any good phantom, it leaves no footprints. It makes no sound when it barks or howls, yet it leaves quite an impression. For it is said that the black dog, quote, if a man shall meet the black dog once, it shall be for joy, and if twice, it shall be for sorrow, and the third time he shall die. As you might expect, there are numerous tales of those who have met their end after seeing the black dog a third time. It wouldn't be a proper legend if there wasn't, right? Stories of the black dog's victims go back as far as the 1800s. As many as half dozen people are believed to have been cursed to death by the creature, including as recently as the 1970s. Our damned experience. I've hiked stretches of the Metacomet Trail, which runs through Hubbard Park, and have visited both peaks as well as Castle Craig. I can't recall ever having seen a black dog in my visits, but I
Neither have
do
I.
know that the hanging hills can be a hazardous hike if you don't pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
There are dramatic elevation changes, deep gorges, and treacherous rock formations, all of which can be quite treacherous even under ideal conditions. It's not hard to picture someone getting seriously hurt or killed while hiking, especially if they are distracted by a friendly dog and don't watch their step. If you go, Hubbard Park is open to the public year round and offers over 50 miles of blue blazing hiking trails. For the lazy, a road runs up the hanging hills between East and West Peak and right to the Castle Craig. And it's open during daylight hours from April to October. Make sure whenever you visit to bring a camera. If you don't see a black dog, you'll at least get some great images from a gorgeous vantage point. By the way, as far as we know, the black dog of Meriden is not related to the black dog of Led Zeppelin fame. Although with spectral creatures, one can never be sure. And let me see. I'm gonna look up a picture of Castle Craig.
Yeah, because
Castle.
it's actually really pretty. Like if you go up there, but it's a pain in the ass to get up there.
All right, so this is
There it
Castle
is.
Craig.
It's just a lookout. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
never
kind
went.
of treacherous if you look at the how the rocks are
I never
here.
went on that. I
There's
never went
another.
on those rocks. I always stood behind that rock wall. There
There's
you
the
go. That's your
view.
360.
Hmm.
Or somebody's. Yeah. Yeah, Meriden looks nice aesthetically,
Yeah,
but
from a distance.
it's dump.
I wouldn't call it a dump, but like,
If you, yeah,
yeah.
but that was
So
it.
are these? Oh, here's a picture of up the stairs.
Yeah, you can't go. You can't go completely to the top. They have like a fence around it. You can't climb up and jump
Well,
off.
yeah,
Basically,
obviously. Yeah, I should hope not. But yeah, so this is where people see the black dog around Castle
yeah.
Craig. Here's a beautiful picture in the fall. Change.
It's and that's at the bottom of that's the at the park right when you enter because you go up and up and up and up and up
Mm-hmm.
and up, driving like the windy
Mm-hmm.
roads.
All right, now are you ready to get into some spoils? Oh wait, there's some comments.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Let's see.
Sandy, you want to
Sandy
go to
says,
a
I
haunted
think I would like
hotel?
to. Oh, um, um,
The
the hotel in
Cassadaga.
Cassadaga. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, it's supposedly haunted, and we went down there's like one hallway. You
Mm-hmm.
can't go upstairs, But I went down one hallway and I was videotaping, just walking down the hallway. And if you remember, Lady Shasha, was it you? No, was it my niece? Anyways, I heard some lady said, "Hey, you can't record down here," and I was like, "Why not?" So I ended up walking all the way down and walking all the way back. But I got I got the video. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that
Here's
house,
here's
like,
the look how the hallway looks. It's very
that's the
creepy.
hallway. That's the hallway I walk down,
Mm-hmm.
and it is creepy because you don't hear anything with the floor going, it's
Mm-hmm.
creaking.
And then this is how the front of it looks. It's also quite old, probably 100
But you
years
can
old.
stay there.
Hotel
You can
Cassadaga.
you
Yeah,
can
you
you
can.
can
You can
stay
stay the
there for a
night.
couple nights.
We've
Oh yeah.
got there's the sitting room in the front.
Yep.
We've sat
It
there
looks like
before.
it looks like the Stanley Hotel.
It kind of does.
Look how it
That's
looks at
another
night.
angle. This is by the bar. I think there's another angle here
That's the
in the
restaurant we had
eatery.
lunch in.
Mm-hmm. And this is meditation station. So you can go in there if you want to meditate.
But to give you a background about Cassadaga, Cassadaga is the
Some of the rooms.
largest. So what is it?
Spiritualist community.
Yes. So everybody in there's like a spiritualist, and they
And
believe
quite a few of them are also clairvoyant
mediums.
or also mediums. There's a lot of
Yeah,
mediums
and
live.
every once a month they
Mm-hmm.
did it for free. But when we went, but last time I went with my mother, I think they made us pay like $2. But they do, um, they'll just be in there, and it's just people from the town,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
they'll
they'll ask you, do you want a message? And they'll give you a message. They don't make you pay. They ask you if you'd like to donate $2. I think that's not bad.
but they
Just to pay for the upkeep and maintenance of places.
and that's the one thing I was skeptical about was I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember they had some lady that came from Boston. It was
Mm-hmm.
my first time going, and this guy was like, he was talking, and he goes, "Oh, you're from Connecticut, aren't you?" And I said, "How do you know that?" And he goes, "Huh, you're in a media, what did he say?
He
You're in a
said, "Where?"
spiritualist
He's
camp."
no. He said you're from Connecticut, huh? And Tony Man said, "How did you know that?" And he said, "Do you know where you're at?" It's like it's a
Yeah.
bunch of psychics walking around.
So
Like
then,
then they're gonna.
we had a little bit of breakfast because they had a breakfast, and we went in there, and they're like, "Let me introduce you to a medium from Boston, Massachusetts, blah blah blah." And she said, "Thank you for the applause, thank you for the applause, but I am getting this strong signal for you." And she pointed directly at me, and I was like, "Oh, me?" And then she just went on and on and on. It was a very powerful reading. Apparently,
Mm-hmm.
she's telling my like she literally was saying stuff my grandmother said, and nobody knew. Nobody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So it affected me. So then,
Yeah.
um, so then her Lady Shasha's sister went and had a reading too. Like, didn't she called on her next, or somebody called on her,
Mm-hmm.
and you know she got her message. But then, so I was like, this is just maybe because it's new people, we're new people, and then it was, I didn't understand it. Then I went with my mother, and my mother's like, I hope I get a reading. And lo and behold, as soon as she got in there, they were like, "We got to talk to you," and they started talking to her, and they mentioned some stuff, like they said something about you had a, like, no one knows this. I don't think Lady Shasha knew this, but they were
Mm-hmm.
like, you had a dog, you had a dog. There's a dog, and it's bumping up against your leg now, telling you it's okay, it's okay. And my mom did have a dog, and the dog was blind, and the dog did keep bumping into her leg and bumping into everything, but it would bump into her leg,
Mm-hmm.
like to get food or whatever. And my mom's just sitting there like, really? Oh, that's cool. And like she didn't even care.
Mm-hmm.
Me, if it affected me, my mom was just sitting there smiling the whole time.
Yeah, because how are they gonna know that you had a blind dog? That's pretty specific.
Yeah, it's again, yeah, but it was like but this is also a woman that lived in a house that was built in the 1800s that owned it.
Yeah,
That
yeah. Your mom's house was really,
we
really
found some
old. Yeah.
freaky pictures, and my mother hung them up.
Mm-hmm.
We found them in the attic. She's like, I'm gonna hang them up. Well, The people might have
This,
lived here. And I was like,
by
what
the
are you
way,
doing?
this is the gift shop in the. This is not in the Cassadaga Hotel. I believe this is. No, it is. This is the gift shop in the hotel. They mostly have like crystals and jewelry and stuff like that in there. Incense too, I think. There's other stores. I should show a little bit of the town of Cassadaga because this is just the hotel. Let's let's just put Cassadaga, Florida, and then I'll go through some pictures. Cassadaga also has a fairy garden. It's not letting me click on this.
Yeah, that we went through.
It's just scrolling on its own, but it's not letting me click on the pictures. Let me go to images then. Oh, look at that. This is an old picture of some of the spiritualists that started Cassadaga. Thin
But
veil among the scrub. But they go there because it, like we were saying, there's an energy there. There's also a place there called Spirit Lake.
And that's where you had your
experience.
experience.
That's when the ghost was playing with my hair. Oh, I should tell that story. Let me see if I can bring a picture. Cassadaga, Florida, Spirit.
Put Spirit Lake.
Yeah.
I think it might be dried out now. No?
So, yeah, during certain times of year it does dry out, but this looks like they're not labeled.
It was right behind the church.
That's the Devil's Chair. I think they moved it, but this was called the Devil's Chair.
If you sit in it and crack a
they say
beer
you'll
at
go,
midnight,
yeah, you'll go crazy or something like that. They say
the devil will drink your beer. It's crazy. It's very weird.
Well,
that's it right there. We went to that. We walked that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we actually sat down there.
But the first time, oh, here's the one. I was under the gazebo. This is the gazebo I was under when that happened. The first time I went, I was with Bossy. Hopefully she's listening. And her sister Maria, and we stopped in Cassadaga because we just had heard about it, and we said, "Oh, let's stop there and see what's going on." But on this day, it was a Sunday evening, and it wasn't sunny. It was very cloudy. No one was outside. That's the odd thing about it. No one was outside. And I was wondering why it felt so empty that day. It was very strange. And when we were under the gazebo, because it started to like drizzle a little bit, so we went under the gazebo for a while, and I just kept on feeling something touching my hair. And now the thing with Bossy is she can hear the spirits. I can't hear them, I can't see them, I can only feel them touching me sometimes. And this one was like playing in my hair, kept on like if someone took their fingers and just kind of flicked your hair and flicked your hair. And so I kept on like wincing, like, oh, something's touching my hair. And Bossy looked over and said, "Oh, you remind her of her doll." And I'm like, "Who?" She was like, the little girl. You remind her of her doll, and that's why she keeps playing with your hair, because the rings in your hair. And I remember feeling fine, like the little girl's playing with my hair. I didn't feel anything. But then when we looked towards the water, there was like a weird presence there, like a masculine and negative weird presence in the middle of the water. And it seemed like it wanted, at the time I didn't know what it wanted. I was like, why is this negative feeling in the middle of the water, and why do I feel it over there? And at the time I got freaked out, and I was like, let's get out of here, because that thing is freaking me out. But now, looking back on it, I don't think it was concerned with me. I think it was more concerned with the little girl spirit. And I remember we were leaving, and we almost got lost trying to get back to the highway. And I remember we called you on the phone and told you what happened. We were like, hey, we stopped by Cassadaga and everything was cool. We were chilling in the gazebo, and little ghost girl was playing with my hair. But there was like some weird entity in the water. And you looked up Cassadaga on the computer. And I remember you telling us, oh, well, the Cassadaga Hotel is haunted by a little girl spirit. And I remember thinking, wow, that's amazing. Because we didn't know that when we went there. But I thought that was pretty cool. And
It
we've
was
been
fun.
back, multiple times since. Don't know what that entity in the water was, but he's whatever the community did that day, he hasn't been back.
Oh, now
Or it hasn't been back,
your
whatever.
chat's going crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, let's go look at the chat here. BC says, have you both seen the A24 movie Ghost Story? No, but I heard it was really, really good. I keep hearing about that.
Really? I never even heard of it.
Oh.
I've seen the Ghost Story from the 1980s.
Yeah, that one's good too. CJ says Leatherman is a really interesting story. And let's see here. BC says, Sandy, I have one for you. It's Where I Seen a Ghost. And yes, watch. It's an interesting movie. And
Okay.
CG says, that hall, it's like liminal spaces again. Yes, that hallway is really creepy in the Cassadaga Hotel. Sandy says, no, I think I would pass on the reading from any psychic or spiritualist. That creeps me out. And BC says, the devil will drink your beer.
Yes.
Laughing emojis.
Yes, that's what they say.
BC says, pizza is coming. I got to step away for a moment. No problem. Get your pizza.
What kind? Don't put pineapple on it.
Yeah, I can't get with the pineapple pizza. I tried it one time and I just couldn't get with it.
Pineapple does not belong on pizza. I'm sorry.
It doesn't work for me. Some people, they might like it, but it doesn't work for me. Actually, let me show this again. This is the sign when you enter the community. Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp. But it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Walk by this Mediumship Way, Spiritualist Street. Another thing about it, you can't play your car radio when you enter the town. You have to turn your car radio off. It like interferes with their channeling and stuff. Well, electronics in general interfere.
The only problem I had going there is just like in any other place. You have you have your people that are like they do customer service, but they're just very like blasé. They don't want to do it.
They're like nonchalant.
But over here, you don't want to say anything. You don't want to think anything because they might be able to read your mind. And then you're going, this chick is you know what I mean?
Yep.
But no, they're some of them are just real. Yeah.
That's how the hotel looks at night.
Yeah, look at the clouds.
If I entertained you, made you smile, or helped you pass the time, please consider supporting this channel so that I can do that more. Horror channels often get suppressed and demonetized, but you can help in 3 ways: by pledging a monthly contribution on Patreon, sending a one-time tip using your preferred financial app, or you could help for free by liking and commenting for the algorithm, and most importantly, sharing this video on your social media. Thank you so much.
Don't forget to hype this video. Thank you so much.